Thank you, Colonel Jason Fettig, and especially Major Michelle Rockers and the members of the United States Marine Band for your invitation to collaborate in recognition of the 75th anniversary of the Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band that was active during World War II from 1943 to 1945. I have had the high honor this week of collaborating with these outstanding professional musicians to celebrate and bring to life the remarkable patriotic service of the Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band that was stationed at the Marine Base Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I'd like to share with you how I, a non-military person, came to be involved with this history. Just to give you some background, in the year 2000, due to a serendipitous occurrence at a music conference luncheon, I dined with the director of the World War II Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band, Charlotte Plummer Owen. I was shocked to learn that there were women musicians who had served in all-female military bands during World War II. Having never heard of these bands, I knew it was likely that not many others had either. From that point, I decided I would research and write a history of these bands, and what a wonderful decision that was. I spent the following years interviewing 84 bandswomen from 8 World War II women's military bands. 43 of those interviewed were Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band members. While attending their reunions 60 years after the war, I witnessed the women's strong commitment to the Marine unit, which had formed decades prior. As I listened to the remarkable stories of patriotic military service and learned about the sisterhood that formed during World War II, I gained firsthand experience with the phenomena of deep commitment and love for country that appropriately earned these women, along with their male and female peers, the title, The Greatest Generation. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the United States entered World War II. Men would volunteer and be drafted for military service, and therefore women were needed to keep the home front factories, businesses, and military branches running by replacing the men who held these positions. To bolster women's courage for this work outside the home, marketing slogans and images of competent women working in factories were shown with the now famous phrase, "We can do it." The working women were often referred to as Rosie the Riveters. You've likely seen one or both of these images, one created by the War Department and the other by Norman Rockwell, that appeared on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. The women were greatly needed to free a man to fight and to keep the home front running. Women would be so important to the war effort that Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson framed the need for women's work as a military strategy. Stimson proclaimed, "The War Department must fully utilize, immediately and effectively, the largest and potentially the finest single source of labor available today, the vast reserve of women power." This statement would forever change the opportunities for women who wanted to work outside the home. As thousands of women chose to join the workforce by becoming factory workers, like the iconic Rosie the Riveter, many other women followed in the footsteps of their grandfathers, fathers, uncles, and brothers, and enlisted in the military through the temporary women's branches of the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marines. The military had its own recruitment posters used to entice women to enlist, featuring women wearing designer-like uniforms and matching red lipstick produced by the Elizabeth Arden Company. By May 1942, national legislation had passed due to the work of a United States Senator from Massachusetts, Edith Norse Rogers, who shepherded through Congress the first bill to create the first women's military branch, the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, or WAC. Other military branches followed the Army's lead, and in February of 1943, the Marine Corps Women's Reserve was established. The idea for a Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band began when then Captain William F. Saddleman, the conductor of the Marine Band, in July 1943 received orders from General Alexander A. Vandergrift to start a women's band to serve the women troops at Camp Lejeune and make it the most outstanding female band in the country. Captain Saddleman and 3 of his principal and first-class musicians from the Marine Band, Charles Owen, Andrew Bodnar, and Edward Masters, traveled to Camp Lejeune to help with the training of the women musicians. In time, Captain Saddleman left these men at Camp Lejeune to work with the women and pick a leader as soon as possible and come back to Washington. They chose a wonderfully talented woman who had been a high school band director and an award-winning clarinetist in Oregon, Charlotte Louise Plummer. She led the women's band during the entire war. Master Sergeant Plummer created a unique playlist to entertain the troops and civilians. You'll hear some of those pieces during this concert. One of those numbers, performed by the Marine Corps Women's Reserve Band and performed now by the United States Marine Band, is the finale from Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4.